before we begin, I want you to do something very simple. I want you to let everything go, not forcefully, not with effort, just the way a hand opens when it is no longer asked to grip anything. Let the day dissolve. Let the things you are thinking about dissolve. Let the version of yourself that navigates the modern world, that checks messages and makes decisions and carries schedules, let that version of yourself step quietly back into the shadows. You will find it exactly where you left it when you wake. But for now, for the next 2 hours, you do not need it. What you need tonight is much simpler than any of that. You need to breathe. You need to feel the weight of your body against whatever is holding you. You need to let your eyes stay closed and your muscles do nothing and your thoughts slow, the way a river slows when it enters deep and wide water, spreading out, losing urgency, becoming something closer to stillness. You are very good at this. You have done it every night of your life. Tonight is no different, except that tonight, instead of slipping into the undirected quiet of ordinary sleep, you are going to walk into a story, and the story is going to carry you the rest of the way. Let me take you somewhere, a long way from here, a long way from now, across centuries and across continents to a land so vast and so quiet that the sky itself seems larger there than anywhere else on earth. A land of grass and wind and stars that fill the darkness from horizon to horizon with a density of light that people in the modern world almost never see anymore. A land where the measure of a person was not what they owned or what they had been given, but what they could endure, what they could learn, and what they were willing to become. Take one more slow breath and let us begin. Part 1, Awakening. You wake up and something is immediately, fundamentally wrong. Not wrong in the way of danger or pain, wrong in the way of dislocation, the way a person feels when they wake in an unfamiliar room and cannot immediately place themselves in the geography of their own life. You are lying on the ground. Not a bed, not a mat of any modern kind. The ground itself, cold and firm and smelling of earth and dry grass and something faintly animal. The smell of horses and smoke and open air that has never been enclosed in walls or filtered through machines. You open your eyes and the sky above you is vast and dark and alive with more stars than you have ever seen in your life. A river of them, a cascade, a spill of silver light across black that makes the sky feel not like a ceiling, but like a depth, like something you could fall upward into. You sit up slowly. Your body moves differently than you expected. There's a weight to it, a density of muscle and bone that feels unfamiliar and yet completely natural, like a coat that has been worn for so long, it has shaped itself to the body beneath it. Your hands, when you look at them, are not the hands you know. They're larger. The skin is rougher, darker from sun and wind and weather. There are calluses on the palms in the specific places that come from years of gripping rains. You turn them over slowly and look at them the way a person looks at something extraordinary and simple at the same time. Something that is perfectly ordinary in this world and completely astonishing to the part of you that arrived here from somewhere else. The camp around you is small. small. A cluster of gurs, those round felt structures that breathe with the wind and hold warmth like cupped hands, standing in the darkness of the steppe at an hour that might be 3 a.m. or 4. That hour when the night is at its deepest and the world has gone completely quiet except for the sound of the wind moving through the grass in slow, rhythmic waves like breathing, like the steppe itself is asleep and you are the only one awake inside its dream. A horse nearby exhales audibly, a low, warm sound, and shifts its weight, and you can hear the soft percussion of its hooves on packed earth. You try to remember who you are. You reach back through the fog of this awakening for your own name, your own face, your own life. And what comes to you instead, slowly and with a weight that is entirely disproportionate to the 3 syllables of it, is a name you do not recognize. Temüjin. It surfaces from somewhere below thought, below memory, the way a word surfaces when you have almost forgotten it, but your mouth knows it before your mind does. Temüjin. You say it quietly, or perhaps only think it, and the name does not feel like a costume or a character in a story. It feels like something that has always been true, something that was waiting for you to remember it. You sit with this for a while. The confusion is not sharp or frightening. It is soft. The confusion of a dream in its most lucid and beautiful moment, when you know you are somewhere that is not your waking life and you choose, because it is extraordinary and because you are safe, to simply remain in it and see what it shows you. The stars burn overhead. The wind moves the grass. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the camp, a horse makes a low sound, and another answers it, and you breathe in the cold night air of the Mongolian steppe, air that has traveled thousands of miles across the continent without touching a single wall or window, and you think, I am here. I do not entirely know what here is, but I am here, and I am going to find out. Part 2. A name you do not recognize. The name Temüjin has a sound to it that is not soft. It is not the name of a man meant for comfort or for ease. It is angular and direct, like the landscape that produced it, like the people who have been shaped by centuries of living in a place that offers beauty without mercy and space without shelter. You are perhaps 16 years old in this life, or 17, a body on the edge between youth and full strength, with the particular quality of someone who has already learned things that most people in easier circumstances never need to learn at all. Around you in the darkness, the camp sleeps, or most of it sleeps. Through the felt wall of the nearest ger, you can hear the slow breathing of people at rest, and it is the most ordinary sound in this extraordinary world. The sound of family, of people whose safety and survival is bound to yours in ways that have nothing to do with sentiment and everything to do with the fundamental reality of life on the steppe. You know this in the way that Temüjin knows it, with a certainty that lives not in the head but somewhere lower, in the chest, in the gut, in the particular alertness of a young man who understands that the world he inhabits does not give second chances to those who are inattentive. The fragments of this life that you carry arrive not all at once, but in pieces, the way memory works, not as a coherent narrative, but as images and emotions and physical sensations that carry their meaning with them. You feel the absence of a father as a specific shape of space in your chest, a gap that has been there long enough that you have stopped noticing it, the way you stop noticing a scar after enough years. But that is still there, still present, still defining the way you stand and the way you watch and the way you plan. Your father Yasuge was a man of some standing among his people, the kind of man whose presence organized the world around it, and his loss left you not just without him, but without the protection his name provided, in a world where names and alliances were the architecture of survival. And there is more. There are memories of your family being abandoned by allies after your father's death, of being left on the steppe without the support structure that was supposed to be the foundation of your existence, of learning in the most visceral and immediate way possible that loyalty in this world is not a given, and that survival is earned, not inherited. These are not pleasant memories, but they are not bitter ones either, not in the way you are feeling them now, in this dark and quiet camp with the stars overhead. They are simply the truth of this life, the raw material from which something is being built, something that you cannot yet see the full shape of, but whose first stones are already laid. The sky is beginning to change at its eastern edge. Not yet lightning, not yet the gray that precedes dawn, but something has shifted in the quality of the darkness, a subtle lessening of the night's full density that only someone who has spent many nights under open sky would notice. You notice it. Temüjin notices it. The part of you that is both of you at once notices it and feels something very close to peace. Part 3. The endless steppe. When the light comes, it comes slowly and it comes completely, and there is nothing in the world quite like a dawn on the Mongolian steppe. You have stood in the life you came from, on mountains and at oceans and at the edges of forests and cities at moments of early light. But none of them prepared you for this. The steppe does not have features for the dawn to illuminate gradually. No hills that catch the first light before the valleys. No forests that hold the dark a little longer than the clearings. It's simply flat and vast and open in every direction, and so when the light arrives, it arrives everywhere at once. A slow brightening that lifts the entire world from darkness to pale gold in a single continuous motion, like a hand raising a lamp beneath a cloth of measureless size. The grass, which in the darkness was simply an absence, a dark texture without detail, becomes visible all at once in its full reality, wave after wave of it, stretching to every horizon, moving in the early morning wind with a slowness and completeness that makes it look less like a field and more like an ocean, a sea of gold and brown and green that has no shore you can see in any direction. You stand at the edge of the camp and you breathe it in. The air at this hour is cold with the specific cold of the steppe, a clean cold, without the heaviness of humidity or the chemical complexity of inhabited spaces. Just pure cold air that has come from somewhere far away and is going somewhere far away and has passed through you, briefly on its journey. You can feel it moving through your lungs. Feel the expansion of your chest with each breath. Feel the particular wakefulness that this kind of air produces, not the sharp alertness of adrenaline, but the broad, steady wakefulness of a body that is simply and completely alive in its environment. The horses are grazing at the edge of the camp, moving with the slow, methodical contentment of creatures who understand exactly what they need and are receiving it. There are 6 of them, small and sturdy and shaggy, compared to the tall breeds you may have seen in other contexts, built for endurance rather than elegance, for the long miles of the steppe rather than the short bursts of an arena. One of them looks up as you approach and regards you with the large, liquid calm of a horse that is comfortable in your presence, and you feel Temüjin's familiarity with this animal as a warmth in your chest, the easy recognition of a partnership that has been built over time through small daily acts of care and trust. You place your hand on the horse's neck and feel the warmth of it beneath your palm, the living warmth of muscle and blood and the particular heat that large animals carry, and you stand like that for a long moment, your hand on the horse, your eyes moving across the steppe, taking in the enormity of the world you are standing in. It is a world that could be terrifying, and sometimes is. But in this morning light, in this moment of stillness before the day begins, it is simply beautiful, endlessly, quietly, profoundly beautiful. Somewhere behind you in the camp you can hear the sounds of morning beginning. A child's voice, not yet words, just a sound. The clatter of something being moved. The smell of smoke as a fire is rekindled. Life resuming its daily shape. And you stand at the edge of it all and look out at the grass and the sky and feel something that in Temüjin's language would not have a single simple word, but that in any language means something like, I am exactly where I am supposed to be, and I am ready for what comes next. Part 4. The first truth. The morning does not give you long to contemplate the beauty of the steppe. This is one of the first and most important truths of this life. The truth that beauty and survival share the same space here without any conflict between them. That you can be moved by the light on the grass and 2 minutes later be completely focused on the practical necessities of keeping people alive. The steppe teaches this integration naturally, without announcement. It simply is what it is. There is food to think about, not in the abstract way of a person planning meals, but in the immediate and practical way of a person who knows that the food available today is limited, and that what is eaten now cannot be eaten tomorrow. The steppe in this era, in the late 12th century, is not a world of surplus. It is a world of precise sufficiency at best, and real scarcity at other times. A world where every resource, every animal, every patch of grass for the horses, every strip of dried meat, every skin of fermented mare's milk is known and accounted for, and matters in a way that food in a world of abundance cannot quite matter. You watch the way the people in this camp move through the morning with this knowledge built into their bodies. Nothing is wasted. Everything has a purpose. The children who might in another world be playing are learning, watching, absorbing the skills they will need: how to read the sky for weather, how to assess the condition of a horse at a glance, how to stretch a small quantity of meat into a meal that sustains. Even the youngest child in this camp knows things that most adults in the world you came from never learn at all. And you, Temüjin, are part of this. Your contribution to the survival of this small community is not symbolic or ceremonial. It is real and daily and measured. You are a young man who can ride and who can hunt and who can make decisions in the field that affect whether people eat today or do not eat today. That responsibility is not a burden you have been given. It is something you grew into, something that was shaped by the circumstances of your life, by the loss of your father, by the abandonment of your family, by people who should have helped them, by the years of managing survival with limited resources and limited allies. You grew into this responsibility the way the steppe horses grow into their endurance, not because anyone decided it should be so, but because the environment required it, and you had the particular quality, the particular combination of intelligence and stubbornness and capacity for learning that allowed you to meet the requirement. The morning hunt is not dramatic. It is methodical and patient and requires a quality of attention that the steppe teaches in its own way. The ability to read landscape and wind and the behavior of animals with the full engagement of all the senses at once. To be completely present in the way that necessity makes possible. You ride out with two others, and the riding is as natural as walking. Your body moving with the horse in the unconscious synchrony of long practice. The communication between rider and animal happening below the level of thought, in the language of weight and balance and subtle pressure. The grassland rolls and breathes around you. The wind comes from the northwest, which matters because it means the animals you are tracking will not catch your scent if you approach from the right angle. You know this the way you know which direction the wind is coming from without having to think about it. The knowledge simply present in the body, the way all essential knowledge eventually becomes. Part 5. The memory that is not yours. The memories arrive in the afternoon, when the hunt is done and the camp is quieter, and you have a moment to simply sit on the grass at the edge of the camp and let your mind go where it wants to go. They do not arrive all at once. They filter in the way light filters through felt, softened and diffused, carrying the quality of their origin even as they change in the passage. You remember a father, not clearly, not in the way of a photograph or a detailed story, but in the way that the body remembers things it learned before language arrived. A presence, a weight, a quality of safety that surrounded you in your earliest years, the safety of a strong and capable father among his own people, a man whose name carried authority and whose voice organized the world around it. Yasuge. The name comes without effort, carrying with it the particular resonance of a life that was substantial and then was suddenly absent. He was poisoned by rival Tatars who offered him food and hospitality in the tradition of the steppe, and then betrayed that tradition in the most fundamental way possible. He died on his way home to his family, making it far enough to send for his son before the poison finished what had begun, dying in the company of his people, but without the time to arrange the future, to secure the alliances and the protections that might have kept his family safe after he was gone. And after he was gone, the clan that had existed under his protection dispersed. The families that had camped with his family, that had shared resources and labor and the practical necessities of steppe life, simply left, took their animals, took their felt walls, took their people, and moved on to attach themselves to a more powerful patron, because that is how this world works. And sentiment has no particular standing in the accounting of survival. You feel this memory not as information, but as something that lives in the body, the particular quality of abandonment, the specific texture of being left by people who should have stayed, and alongside it, not replacing it, but existing with it in the same space, the particular quality of a young person deciding what to do with that experience. You remember the decision, or feel the echo of it, the moment when the abandonment became not just a wound, but a lesson. The moment when you stopped expecting the world to be fair and started thinking about how to build the kind of position that would make fairness less necessary. The kind of position where people came to you not because they had to, but because you had made yourself worth coming to. This is where it begins. Not with conquest, not with armies, not with the vast coordinated campaigns that history will eventually record in accounts of astonishment. It begins here, in the quiet of a small camp on a vast steppe, in the mind of a young man sitting in the afternoon light, thinking about what kind of person he intends to become. This is the seed of it. Tiny, invisible, already alive. The grass moves around you in long, slow waves, and the sky above is that particular shade of deep blue that the steppe sky achieves in the afternoon. A blue that seems to go further up than ordinary sky, that has depth to it like clear water has depth. A bird calls somewhere in the distance and is answered by silence. And you sit in the middle of this enormous world, and you are not afraid of it. You are beginning very quietly and very genuinely to understand it. Part 6. Learning the ways of the steppe. The days that follow have a rhythm to them that is both demanding and, in its own way, deeply satisfying. You are being shaped by this life, the way stone is shaped by water. Not all at once, but continuously, each day's experience, wearing away what is unnecessary and revealing what is essential, until what is left is precisely fitted to the demands of the environment it inhabits. Writing comes back to you first, or comes to Temüjin more fully than before, because the truth is that Temüjin has always been able to ride, but in the recent years of hardship, years of reduced access to good horses and the limited circumstances of a family without powerful allies, the riding has been more about necessity than mastery. Now, in the days following your awakening in this life, you ride with a different kind of intention. You ride to understand the horse, to push the boundaries of the communication between rider and animal, to learn the specific language that a great rider develops with a specific horse, a language made of subtle shifts of weight and pressure and rhythm that eventually become so fine and so complete that the horse responds to thoughts before they become actions. The steppe horse is not beautiful in the way that the horses bred for ceremony or racing are beautiful. It is beautiful in the way of all things that are perfectly adapted to their purpose. Short-legged and barrel-chested and broad-hoofed, with a mane that grows thick enough to function as insulation against the steppe winters, with feet that can cover 50 miles in a day on rough ground without injury, with an endurance that seems to come not from physical structure alone, but from something closer to character. These horses are not broken to submission. They are partners in an ancient arrangement, and the arrangement works because both parties bring something essential to it. You learn, or remember, the patterns of the grassland through the seasons, which are not four, but many, each with its own demands and its own gifts. The timing of the rains that bring the grass back from its winter dormancy. The routes of the great herds of animals that the hunters follow across the steppe. The places where water is reliable, and the places where it looks reliable, and is not. The signs in the sky, and in the behavior of animals that mean weather is changing. The wind directions and what each one brings. You absorb all of this the way the steppe absorbs rain, taking it down into deep layers where it becomes part of the structure of the land itself. And there is something else you are learning, something that does not have a practical name, but that might be called presence. The quality of being fully in the moment, not because you have been instructed to be, but because the steppe punishes inattention immediately and concretely. A rider who is not fully present does not notice the small shift in the horse's movement that means the animal has sensed something. A hunter who is not fully present does not read the wind correctly and loses the quarry and goes hungry. Presence here is not a spiritual practice. It is a survival skill. And the interesting thing about learning it as a survival skill is that it produces the same results as any other path to presence. A quality of aliveness, of engagement with each moment as it actually is, that is genuinely extraordinary. You ride in the late afternoon, and the shadow of the horse and rider stretches long across the grass ahead of you, and the steppe in all its vastness moves past at the pace of a canter, and the wind is in your face, cold and clean, and you feel in your body what it means to be completely alive in a world that requires everything you have. Part 7. The First Rivalries. Power on the steppe is not a permanent condition. It is more like weather, always present in some form, always shifting, always requiring that those who navigate it remain attentive to changes that can happen quickly and consequentially. The tribes that inhabit this vast landscape exist in a web of relationships that are constantly being renegotiated through marriage and alliance and conflict and the slow accumulation of reputation that determines who others will follow when following becomes necessary. You begin to understand this web by watching it. Temüjin has always been a watcher, the kind of person who learns by observation before action, who takes the time to understand the shape of a situation before deciding what to do within it, in the camp and in the interactions with other groups that the necessities of steppe life require. You watch the way power moves. You watch who defers to whom and why. You watch the difference between deference that is genuine and deference that is strategic. The difference between a person who follows because they believe in what they are following and a person who follows because the calculation of the moment makes following the most advantageous option. There's a man in a neighboring camp whose name you have learned from the fragments of Temüjin's memory. A man who carries himself with the particular swagger of someone who is used to being the largest presence in whatever space he inhabits. He has more horses than your family. He has more people attached to his jur. He speaks loudly in the way of men who believe their volume adds weight to their words. And you watch him in the moments when he does not know he is being watched, because those are the moments that reveal the truth of a person. And what you see is a man who rules through the creation of fear and who is not curious about anything that does not serve him immediately. You file this observation away without comment. You are not ready to act on anything yet. You are still in the phase of understanding, of mapping the landscape of power the way you map the landscape of the steppe, not to conquer it immediately, but to know it well enough that when the moment comes to move, you know which direction is open and which is closed. There is tension in the air between certain groups, the specific tension of people who have been in conflict and have not fully resolved it, who maintain a surface of coexistence while underneath it, the grievances sit and compound. You feel this tension the way you feel weather coming, not yet arrived, but making itself known in subtle shifts of atmospheric pressure. You do not push toward it. You watch it from a careful distance, and you learn its shape. Part 8. The first choice. The moment of choice arrives not with drama, but with the quiet insistence of all genuine decisions. The ones that matter, not because of their immediate impact, but because of the direction they set, the path they open or close for everything that follows. A man comes to your camp, seeking alliance. Not a powerful man, not someone with great resources to offer, a man who is in a difficult position himself, whose small group is under pressure from a more powerful tribe, and who is looking for someone to stand beside him. He is not offering you a great deal. What he is offering is the beginning of something, a connection, a bond of mutual obligation and mutual aid that might, in time, become part of a larger structure. The calculation is not simple. Taking on this alliance means taking on the hostility of the more powerful tribe that is pressuring him, which is a real and immediate risk for a family in your situation. The steppe has no shortage of examples of what happens to people who make enemies they cannot handle. But not taking the alliance, choosing to stay isolated and self-sufficient, means staying in the position you are in, which has its own risks, the slow risks of isolation, of having no one to call on when your own moment of need arrives. You sit with this for longer than is comfortable. You let yourself feel the weight of it, the real weight, not just the intellectual puzzle of competing calculations, but the visceral reality of a decision that will affect not just you, but the people who depend on you, people who do not have the luxury of remaining uninvolved in whatever you choose. And in the sitting with it, something clarifies. Not a certainty about the outcome. Outcomes are never certain on the steppe, but a clarity about the direction, about the kind of person you are choosing to become, you say yes to the alliance, not because you are certain it is the right tactical move, but because you understand, in a way that is becoming increasingly clear to you, that the kind of world you want to build is a world where people can trust that a commitment means something, where a word given is a word kept, where the bonds between people are real rather than merely strategic. And you cannot build that world without beginning to live it, one decision at a time. It is a small yes, barely perceptible in the vast motion of the steppe's politics, but it is the first stone of something that does not yet have a name. Part 9. Gathering loyalty. The remarkable thing about genuine loyalty is how quietly it arrives. Not the loyalty of fear, which announces itself loudly and departs even more loudly at the first sign of weakness, but real loyalty, the kind that holds through difficulty and distance and the long, complicated passage of time, that arrives in silence and accumulates the way snow accumulates, so gradually that you do not notice how much there is until you look up one day and find that the world has been covered. People begin to come to your fire, not in great numbers. In the beginning, it is 2, then 3, then a handful more. They come for different reasons. Some come because they have heard of the alliance you formed and have drawn their own conclusions about the kind of leader you might become. Some come because they have seen something in how you carry yourself, a quality that is difficult to name, but that people who have lived on the steppe for generations have learned to recognize. The quality of someone who thinks before they act, who listens before they decide, who treats the people around them as something more than instruments. And some come simply because they have nowhere else to go, and they have heard that your camp is a place where people are not treated with contempt. This last reason is the one that surprises you most and teaches you the most. The steppe has no shortage of power in the sense of people who can compel others to follow them through force or fear or the weight of accumulated resources. What it has a shortage of is something different, something that the people who come to your fire are recognizing in you before you have fully recognized it in yourself. The willingness to see people as people, the willingness to ask what someone is good at, rather than simply issuing commands. The habit of making the people around you feel that their contribution matters. You learn the names of everyone in the growing camp. This is not a small thing. It requires attention and genuine interest. The willingness to hold another person's identity as something worth knowing. You learn not just the names, but the details. Who has the best eye for tracking animals? Who is the fastest rider over short distances? Who knows the most about weather? Who is the best at keeping the children calm during difficult periods? You build a picture of your people the way a craftsman builds something that must function under real conditions, understanding the properties of each component and placing it where its properties serve the whole. The camp grows slowly, and the quality of what is growing is different from the quality of what surrounds it. Different in the way that a structure built with care is different from a structure built in haste, even when from the outside they look similar. The difference will only become fully visible when the wind comes. Part 10. understanding power. You begin to observe the other leaders of the steppe with the specific attention of someone who is building a mental library of what works and what does not, what creates genuine authority, and what creates only the temporary appearance of it. There is a particular type of leader who dominates by ensuring that the people around him are always slightly afraid. Not necessarily afraid of physical punishment, though that is sometimes part of it, but afraid in the broader sense of never knowing quite where they stand, never feeling secure in their position, never trusting that their loyalty will be recognized or that their contribution will be valued. This type of leader creates compliance, but not capability. He creates presence, but not commitment. The people around him do what they are told, but they do not think, because thinking in an environment of fear is dangerous, because an original thought that turns out to be wrong is a liability rather than a contribution. And the result, over time, is a structure that is strong only as long as the leader is strong, that has no depth, no resilience, no capacity to function beyond the direct supervision of the person at its center. You watch this type, and you understand it, and you consciously, deliberately choose something different. You choose to make the people around you feel that their intelligence is valued, that their observations matter, that bringing you a problem is better than hiding it, that being honest about what is not working is more useful to everyone than maintaining a false picture of success. This is not an easy thing to build. It requires that you actually mean it, that when someone comes to you with difficult information, you receive it with gratitude rather than punishing the messenger. And you work at this the way you work at the riding and the tracking and all the other skills of this life, with the understanding that it is something you can get better at, that the effort is worth the result. The other leaders look at your growing camp, and some of them do not take it seriously yet. A young man with a handful of followers on a modest stretch of steppe is not yet a power to be reckoned with. They see what is visible. You are working on what is not yet visible. Part 11. The first small victory. Not every victory announces itself as a victory. Some of the most important ones look from the outside, like very ordinary days. The moment you are thinking of as you sit by the fire on this particular evening is not a battle. It is not a conquest. It is a conversation that went on for most of the afternoon and ended with a handshake and an agreement. And the agreement means that a group of 30 families who have been in a precarious position on the steppe, attached to no powerful patron, vulnerable to the pressures of larger and more aggressive groups, have agreed to camp with you, to contribute to the collective work of the expanded group, and in return, to have the protection of your alliance and your growing reputation. 30 families, not thousands, not tens of thousands. 30 families with their animals and their skills and their children and their knowledge of this particular stretch of the steppe. And yet, as you sit by the fire and let the weight of this settle, you feel something that you recognize as important, even though it has none of the markers that the word important usually carries. You feel the beginning of something larger than yourself, the beginning of a structure that will outlast any single moment and any single decision, that will have its own momentum and its own direction that you are building, but that is also already building you. This is how it begins, not with an empire, with 30 families, with a reputation that is growing because it is being earned, with a set of values that are being demonstrated daily rather than merely declared, with a growing ability to look at a situation and understand it more clearly than the people who have been in it longer, because you are willing to question what they take for granted. The fire burns low in front of you, and the stars are very bright, and the steppe is quiet in every direction, and you think about what tomorrow will require, and what the week after that will require, and what the shape of things is beginning to look like from where you are sitting. And you feel very quietly, and without any need to announce it to anyone, something that might be called hope. Part 12. The weight of responsibility. There is a moment that comes to every person who has taken on genuine responsibility for other people. A moment when the abstract concept of leadership becomes a concrete and daily reality with faces and names attached to it. That moment comes for you on a cold morning when one of the families in the expanded camp comes to you with a problem that has no good solution. They have been camped in one location long enough that the grass is becoming thin, which means the horses and the sheep are not getting adequate grazing, which means the animals are slowly losing condition, which means the capacity of the whole group to survive the coming winter is being quietly but steadily eroded. Moving camp means leaving the relative security of the current location and crossing terrain that is contested, that other groups move through and sometimes dispute. Staying means the slow erosion continues. Neither option is safe. Both options have costs, and the people who have brought you this problem are looking at you with a particular expression of people who have decided to trust someone with their safety and are now waiting to see whether that trust was correctly placed. They are not looking at you with demanding eyes or accusatory eyes. They are looking at you with the eyes of people who are genuinely waiting to be led, which is in some ways more difficult to receive than accusation, because it carries within it the full weight of what they have entrusted to you. You make a decision, you choose to move. The risk of the crossing is real, but the certainty of staying is slow death, and slow death is still death. You plan the crossing with care, choosing the time and the route and the order of travel to minimize the exposure to the contested terrain. You ride the route yourself first, reading it for what you need to know, and then you bring the camp through it, staying with the group, visible and present throughout, not in the rear directing from a distance, but in the position of most exposure so that the people following you can see that you are sharing the risk rather than merely assigning it. The crossing is uneventful. Nothing dramatic happens, which means the preparation worked. You arrive at the new grazing ground, and the grass is good, and the horses begin to eat with the urgency of animals that have been hungry and can now address that hunger. And the people in the camp do not make speeches about what you have done. They simply continue with their lives. But there is something different in how they look at you that day. A quality of confirmed trust that is different from initial trust. The quality of a bet that has been proven right. Part 13. The harsh lessons. Not everything that you attempt succeeds. The steppe is not a world that rewards only effort and intention. It is a world that requires wisdom, and wisdom is partly native quality, but mostly accumulated experience, which means that some of its cost is paid in failure and in the particular education that failure provides when you are willing to receive it honestly. There is a betrayal. It comes from someone you had begun to trust, someone you had given access to information and resources that you would not give to someone you did not trust. And the betrayal uses exactly that access to cause real damage. Animals are taken. An alliance you are building is undermined with disinformation delivered to the other party before you could establish the relationship solidly enough to withstand it. You feel the specific quality of betrayal, which is different from other forms of loss because it contains within it the secondary pain of having been wrong about a person, of having extended trust that was not deserved. You do not allow yourself to stay in that feeling longer than it needs to be felt. You feel it fully because numbing it would mean losing the information it carries, the lesson about what signs you missed, about what you were willing not to see, because seeing it would have been inconvenient. You have been too trusting in a specific way, extending confidence before it was earned, moving at the speed of your ambition rather than the speed of genuine verification. This is worth knowing. It is expensive to learn this way, but what has been paid for has been learned. You adjust, not by becoming suspicious of everyone, not by closing the quality of openness that has been one of your genuine strengths, but by adding to it a patience about the pace of extending trust, a willingness to watch longer before deciding. The adjustment is subtle but real. You are a slightly different leader after this than you were before it. And the difference is improvement, bought at a price you would rather not have paid but are not sorry you paid. There are also losses that are not the result of any mistake. Animals die in weather. A man in the camp who has been one of your most reliable people falls from a horse and breaks his arm in a way that will take the full winter to heal and may not heal completely. Two families who had been moving toward joining the camp choose instead to join a more established patron, making the calculation that stability outweighs potential. These losses are simply the texture of the world, the friction of existence in a place that does not smooth its edges for anyone. You receive them the same way you receive the harsher lessons, fully and honestly, and then forward. The steppe teaches this rhythm not as philosophy, but as necessity. A person who cannot move forward from loss does not survive long enough to become anything. Part 14. Becoming. The name Temüjin begins to feel different in your mouth. Not the name itself. The sounds of it have not changed. But what the name contains has been changing, slowly. The way a vessel changes when it is filled with something. The empty vessel and the full vessel have the same name, but they are not the same thing. You notice this on a morning when you are riding alone, which you try to do at least occasionally, to have the time and the space to simply be with your own thoughts without the demands of the camp requiring immediate response. The steppe is vast and quiet, and the horse moves beneath you with its steady rhythmic motion, and you find yourself thinking in ways that are larger than the immediate problems of the camp, larger than the calculation of this week's resources and next month's weather, and the ongoing assessment of the tribal relationships that surround you. You find yourself thinking about the steppe itself, about the fact that it is one thing, one connected landscape, stretching from the forests in the north to the deserts in the south, from the mountains in the west to the sea in the east, and that all across this landscape are people, different groups speaking different languages and following different customs and owing allegiance to different patrons, but all of them, underneath the divisions, living the same essential life, shaped by the same essential forces, sharing the same essential vulnerabilities. And you find yourself wondering, not as a plan, not yet, but as a genuine question, what it would mean if they were not divided. What the steppe could become if the energy that its people spend fighting each other, raiding each other's herds, carrying grudges across generations, building and breaking fragile alliances in the endless calculation of relative power, what all of that energy could become if it were organized differently, if it were directed outward rather than inward. This is the first time the thought arrives in its full form. It does not feel like ambition. It feels more like a question with an obvious answer that no one has yet been willing to act on, like seeing a river flowing in the wrong direction and understanding that it could be redirected. Not easily, not without enormous effort and cost, but it could be done. And the question that follows the understanding is not whether it could be done, but who would do it. You ride back to the camp in the late afternoon light, and the camp is the same camp it has always been, and the people in it are the same people they have always been. But something about how you see it has changed. You see it now not as an end, but as a beginning, the beginning of the beginning. Part 15, the vision. There is a quality of clarity that comes sometimes in the night, in the specific hours between deep sleep and waking, when the mind is both more open and more honest than it is in the full business of the day. You have been on the steppe long enough now that you sleep the way the steppe people sleep, quickly and deeply when sleep is available, alert and immediate when waking is required, with no particular distinction between the two states except what the moment demands. Tonight you wake in the middle of the night, and the camp is completely still, and the stars above the open top of the Jer, that small circle of sky that is always visible from inside a felt dwelling, are extraordinary, the kind of stars that feel close enough to touch, or to be touched by, the kind of stars that make the distance between the ground and the sky feel less like emptiness and more like substance. You lie still, and you let your mind go where it wants to go. And where it goes is large. You see the steppe in your mind not as it is, divided and contested and perpetually in motion, but as it could be, unified under a single law, a single code of conduct that would apply to everyone and be enforced equally regardless of tribe or origin. A world where a merchant traveling across the steppe view would not need to fear being robbed by the next clan over the horizon. A world where the skills and the knowledge of each group could be shared with all the others rather than hoarded as competitive advantage. A world where the tremendous human capacity of the steppe people, their endurance and their horsemanship and their ability to move and adapt and survive in conditions that would kill armies from elsewhere, could be focused into something organized and directed and genuinely powerful. This is not a dream you are having. You are completely awake. This is a vision in the older and more serious sense of the word. A clear seeing of something that does not yet exist, but that is genuinely possible, genuinely within the reach of the right person, with the right approach, and the right amount of time and the right quality of commitment. You lie under the stars of the Mongolian night, and you feel this vision settle into you the way water settles into dry ground, going down into the deep layers, becoming a part of the structure of your thinking, your planning, your sense of what your life is for. And it does not feel like ambition, not in the grasping, urgent sense of the word. It feels like calling, like purpose, like the thing you are here in this life, in this body, in this time to do. Part 16, Reflection Under the Open Sky. There is a place you have found, perhaps 2 miles from the camp at the top of a gentle rise where the grass is shorter and the view in every direction is uninterrupted. You come here sometimes in the evenings when the light is fading and the temperature is beginning to drop and the first stars are appearing at the zenith before the western sky has finished its long, slow move from orange to purple to the deep blue that precedes full night. You come here to be alone in the specific way that the steppe allows aloneness. Alone, not in the sense of being separated from other people, but in the sense of being in direct and unmediated contact with the world, without the buffer of walls or decisions, or the constant, small demands of the people who depend on you. Here, for a little while, you are not a leader, and not a plan, and not a responsibility. You are simply a person sitting on a rise on the steppe as the day ends, watching the sky do what the sky does. You think about who you were before this life found you, about the person you were in the world you came from, with its particular set of concerns and its particular way of measuring what matters. And you find that you cannot quite remember the details with the sharpness you might have expected. The memories are there, but softened, the way memories soften when they are truly past. And what is sharp, what has the clarity of genuine present experience, is this: the grass and the sky, and the cooling air, and the horse grazing quietly nearby, and the sounds of the camp drifting up from below in the warm domestic sounds of people ending a day. You have been changed by this life, not entirely, not in the way that would make you unrecognizable to yourself, but in the ways that matter. You have learned patience in a place where impatience costs lives. You have learned presence in a place where absence costs meals. You have learned that real authority does not require loudness or threat, but requires something quieter and harder to acquire: the capacity to make other people feel that what they are doing matters, and that they are seen clearly by someone who cares about the outcome. The stars multiply above you as the sky darkens. grass whispers in the wind. Somewhere below, someone is tending a fire, and the smoke rises in a thin, straight line into the still evening air, which means the wind has died, and tomorrow will be clear. You read this without thinking about reading it, the knowledge simply present, the way all knowledge that has been truly learned becomes present. You think about the vision you had in the night, the unified steppe, the single law, the organized power of a people who have been spending themselves against each other for as long as history can reach. And you think about how far away that is from where you are sitting right now, 2 miles from a camp of a few hundred people on an ocean of grass. And you feel, perhaps unexpectedly, not discouragement, but something very close to patience. You know, with the certainty of someone who has been shaped by the steppe itself, that things that take a long time to build are the things that last, and you are in no hurry. You have the rest of your life, and your life, you are beginning to understand, is going to be long and full and unlike any life that has been lived before. Part 17, Acceptance. There comes a point in any genuine immersion in a life, any true arrival in a world, different from the one you began in, where the comparison stops, not because you have forgotten where you came from, but because the present has become so fully present that the distance between where you were and where you are is simply no longer the thing you are thinking about. You have reached that point. You are no longer observing this life from the slight remove of someone who knows they are inside a story. You are simply inside it. Temüjin's concerns are your concerns. The cold morning air on the steppe is cold on your face. The weight of the decisions is weight in your chest. The satisfaction of a good day's work, a successful hunt, a productive conversation that moved an alliance forward is satisfaction in your body. You are here, entirely and completely, in the way that being here has always meant being here. And this is where the sleep deepens for you. Not because the story is ending, but because the resistance to it has ended. The part of you that was holding slightly apart, maintaining the observer's position, the part that was aware it was inside a story rather than living a life. That part has finally relaxed its grip and allowed the full experience to arrive. And with it comes a quality of rest that is deeper and more complete than the rest of ordinary sleep. The rest of a person who has been somewhere real and come back changed by it. The steppe is all around you. It is always all around you. It was there before you arrived, and it will be there long after you, vast and beautiful and indifferent to the smallness of any single human life, and yet somehow, mysteriously, the right scale for the particular life you are living here. You belong to it now in the way that the horses belong to it, in the way the grass belongs to it, in the way the wind belongs to it, not because you were born here, but because you have been shaped here, day by day, in the specific crucible of this landscape, and this time and these people. Part 18, the beginning of everything. Night comes to the steppe, the way it comes nowhere else. There is no city glow to soften the edges, no artificial light to hold the dark at a distance. The darkness is complete, and the stars are everything, and the steppe, under the full weight of a clear night sky, is a place of extraordinary and quiet magnificence that no description can quite capture, that has to be experienced in the body to be known. You know it now. You carry it now. It is part of you, in the way that real experience always becomes part of the person who lives it. You stand at the edge of the camp in the night. The camp is asleep around you, or almost asleep, the breathing of many people audible as a low and comfortable sound, the sound of a community at rest, the sound of people who have ended this day alive and fed and together. A horse shifts its weight nearby. The fire at the center of the camp is burned down to coals that glow orange in the darkness, like a small and private sun. The wind has died completely, and the air is very cold and very still, and the stars seem, in the absence of any movement, to be closer than usual, and though the night has settled down toward the ground and brought them with it. You look out at the steppe. You can see almost nothing in the darkness, just the faint suggestion of the grass moving in a wind too slight to feel. The dark horizon where the land meets the sky. And yet you know what is there. You know it in the way that you know everything about this place now, with a knowledge that has been built into the body through days and weeks and months of direct encounter. Out there is the full reach of a continent. Out there are hundreds of thousands of people living lives as immediate and real and complex as the lives in this camp. People who are afraid and ambitious and loyal and treacherous and capable of extraordinary things and ordinary things and everything in between. Out there is the steppe in its full enormity, waiting for whatever comes next. Nothing is built yet, not in any sense that history would recognize. There is a small camp. There are a few hundred people who have chosen, for their own reasons, to be here. There is a growing reputation and a few solid alliances and a set of values that are beginning to organize themselves into something that might, with time and effort and luck and the quality of judgment that is still being forged in the daily work of leading people, become the foundation of something real. Nothing is built yet, but everything is possible. And in this moment, standing in the darkness of the steppe under a sky full of stars, looking out at a world that is waiting to be shaped, you feel something that is not ambition and not excitement and not pride. It is something quieter and deeper and more durable than any of those things. It is the feeling of standing at the threshold of your own life and understanding, without drama or urgency, that the life is large enough for everything you intend to do with it. Empires are not built in a moment. They begin in silence, with a single choice made by a single person in the dark, with no witness but the stars and the steppe and the particular quality of their own character that the work of many difficult days has been slowly and patiently revealing. Tonight, that choice is yours. And now, slowly and gently, let the steppe begin to recede. Let the cold air of the Mongolian night soften back into the temperature of the room you are in. Let the sound of the wind in the grass become the sound of silence, or of whatever quiet sounds surround you now. Let the stars above the open gur become the familiar dark of your own ceiling. Let the horse nearby become the ordinary comfortable sounds of wherever you are. You have been somewhere very far away tonight. You have lived inside a life that was not yours, and that was, in some important way, entirely yours. The way all deep stories are ours, because they show us something about what it means to be human in a world that is always larger than our current understanding of it. You have felt the cold of the steppe and the weight of responsibility and the particular satisfaction of understanding something difficult and the particular challenge of becoming something different from what you began as. And now you are here, warm and held and completely safe. Your body is heavy in the good way, the way it is heavy when it has been somewhere real and has come back ready to rest. Your mind is quiet in the way it is quiet when it has been given something genuinely large to think about and has thought about it, and is now prepared to set it down. Set it down now. Let everything you carried tonight rest where you lay it. Let the steppe hold Temüjin's story for you while you sleep. Let the stars of the Mongolian night keep their watch without your help. Let the empire that began in silence continue to begin, slowly and quietly and inevitably, while you rest. The grass is still moving on the steppe. The stars are still burning. The wind is still traveling its long path across the continent, touching everything briefly and moving on. And somewhere in the vast and permanent quiet of the night, a young man is standing at the edge of a small camp, looking out at an enormous world, understanding for the first time the full shape of what he is going to do with the life he has been given. Sleep now. Let him stand there. Let him hold the beginning for you. And when you wake, bring back with you whatever this night left in you. The patience of the steppe, the presence of a rider at full gallop, the quiet certainty of a person who knows what they are for. It is enough. You have done enough.